Shaviryachakraha Sthirairangehi Sushrumadam Sasanubihi Vyashema Devahitayadayuhu Swastina Indro Vrutashravaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Starcho Arishtademihi Swastino Brahmaspatir Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Revision time. We saw so much yesterday. Who wants to summarize? He's the first one to raise that, so it's wonderful. Okay, go ahead.
Alright, so day 3 was captured in 4 points, and keeping them short. The first point that stuck out was the more we know about the mechanics of Ishvara, the more we can accommodate or exercise an accommodative attitude towards those who we would otherwise judge or diminish in some way. So that brings the topic of what is Ishvara. And 3 points were captured by that. The first is it's the ruler of laws. In other words, it's Dharma Raja. It's the world creator, in other words, Jagat Karanam, Karanam the cause. And it is a non-fixed principle of possibilities which are collapsed by Jiva's free will. That was a point shared at the end of the class. So that means, which was clearly illustrated in a very good story yesterday of the false or forged coupon, whereby the peasant who got arrested, if one were to look at the peasant, we would usually judge, but we do not know the background that has happened for that person to be exposed to that kind of situation. So that's what it means to say accommodative / compassionate attitude towards the world. Okay. Point 2. Mr. Dayananda has stated Saraswati. Okay, so Dayananda has stated in a very beautiful sentence, and that is, we, number 1, cannot bypass the order of Ishvara, and number 2 is we need to settle accounts with the world. So that brought us to 2 points as to how. The answer is, first is to deal with emotions. And one way to deal with emotions, the first point, is to acknowledge the presence of that emotion. Otherwise, the denial in itself of that emotion becomes an impediment to moving further.
Excellent.
And the second point was to retell the story, or to reframe the story in such a way as to see what could have I missed that I did not mention before. Okay. So, example was given yesterday, and that is, if there is, for example, jealousy or envy or any kind of small feeling towards another, then instead of reveling in that, what about going up to that person and exercising satyam or priyambadam and saying politely what do we really feel about them and complimenting them on what qualities we would like to have for ourselves. Point number 3. We talked about the mind, antakarna. And the mind was split into 4 parts. Somebody over there said there's another part, which we did not include on the board, and that's called the doubter, but we'll cover the 4 parts on the whiteboard. The first part... okay. The first part was manas, which is the feeler of emotions. The second part is buddhi, intellect, the thinker of thoughts, discriminator.
Okay. Thinker of thoughts is not what you say, but you're right, the discriminator, the capacity to understand.
Okay, thank you for that correction. Number 3 is memory. We split that into 2 categories, the unconscious and the conscious. And number 4 was ahamkara. Ahamkara, which is the I am sense. Now, the I am sense is a result of activity occurring in the manas, the buddhi, and in the memory. For example, let's say the intellect concludes, the buddhi concludes a wrong conclusion about Brahman. Then that conclusion will be what? Superimposed, and the I am, that is the ahamkara, will own that conclusion and then state the wrong conclusion about the buddhi.
That is too complex. Can you simplify?
Okay. Okay, let's take the manas, for example, emotion. Let's say there's an emotion of confusion.
Okay.
Then that emotion will be, quote, passed on to the ahamkara, and therefore the I am will state I am confused.
Okay. Stay there.
Same with the intellect. If there's a wrong discernment, then the I am says about the wrong discernment.
It's more than just the mind, it's also the body.
Yes.
The body is sick.
I am.
I am sick.
I am is connected to that. Not only those 3 processes, but also to body. Good. Yes,
And the
correct.
last point, okay, and the last point is very interesting, is the word Atman. So, Atman equals I, comma, aham, comma, comma, consciousness, full stop.
Wonderful. Okay, perfect.
Okay, and
Don't forget
That
Brahman.
is-
Did you mention
in other
Brahman?
words,
Okay,
That's
he's
not
adding one more comma, Brahman.
Brahman, yeah, because
Perfect.
it's really the same, right?
Yes, it's all the
2
same.
words for the same,
Yes.
okay.
and finally the last point is Atman is that because of which the mind, that is the antakarana, is known for what it is. That's it.
Could you repeat the last sentence?
The last point?
Last sentence?
The last point said that Atman is that because of which the contents within the antakarana are known for what they are.
Okay. Anybody else wants to add? Very good. That is fine. Anybody? Yes, Roxanne.
I just wanted to add that all these points, we started from the human pursuits, from the 3, let's say basic, not basic. We started from Artha, Kama, and Dharma, the need for security, the need for pleasure, as well as ethics. And when people realize that these are not enough to feel fulfilled, we start looking for moksha, for something else.
Very good. So that was the meaning of the verse Parikshalokan Karmachitan. You observe that the normal pursuits don't give me what I'm looking for, and then you search. And also one transition we made, and you become a spiritual person, and a lot of things happen. You go to a lot of places, hear a lot of things, and then there is one final logic which brings you to this knowledge. And what is that logic?
That you
In that verse, there is a logic given.
okay. their actions are not the ones that will bring you fulfillment, but actually knowledge.
Akruta na asti akrutaha krutena. No actions, right, will bring you the total freedom, because action is limited. And if you think you are limited and you need an action to free you, it will never happen. Wonderful. And you need knowledge. Very good.
There is also the point that once moksha becomes the primary pursuit in life, then if you meet a proper teacher with the proper methodology, then the knowledge can take place.
Superb. Right? So there are some Upanishads which say that the minute you meet a teacher who knows the vision and has the capacity to transfer you completely, your life is made. And if you're able to recognize that teacher and stay with the teacher and use this opportunity, then it's kind of so that's the critical part of the teacher finding, which you actually have no 100% control over, and that also comes from some grace of Ishvara. So, very good.
The highest form of Dharma was, we saw, was turning from a survivor to a contributor, and contributing to people's well-being.
Right? So dharma itself, like artha kama dharma, what Dara is saying is that dharma starts with following the universal values, then also becoming aware of one's own specific duties and responsibilities, and it then goes on to becoming a contributor at large. Yeah? Without carrying this whole burden of saving the world. Right? It's not really our thing that, oh, you don't want to become a missionary, and you don't want to have the zeal of changing the world and saving the world as though you are the whole burden is given on you. But yes, you do have to become a contributor, and that's the highest expression of human growth and dharma. Very good. Very good. Anybody else?
What is important for me is that we saw, the question, how can you know Brahman if it's not an object? That you said it is self-shining, and everything shines after the Brahman, and this self-shining is, for me, a very important thing to know.
Very good. We used a methodology to show that how can we say, you can keep making this statement that self is self-shining. So what the example we used is, we started with a cup, yeah, and we said that for you to recognize, the cup has to be in the light. So the sun is shining and the cup is shining after. Then the sun itself, for you to see, you need your eyes, right? So therefore, sun shines after your eyes and the eyes are shining. But eyes themselves need the mind, right? So therefore, now the eyes are shining after, the mind is shining. And the mind itself is shining after consciousness. Without the presence of consciousness, changing conditions of the mind cannot be known. So this is a methodology to make you understand that there is only one thing which is self-shining. That doesn't require help of anything else. That is what is meant by self-shining, right? Everything else requires help of something else. This is the final thing which doesn't need anybody else's help for it to reveal itself. That's called self-shining, self-revealing awareness, right? Otherwise, we don't know what we mean by self-revealing. So these are methodologies which make you see what is meant. Yeah.
Bhati.
Yeah, bhati and vibhati.
Anubhati.
Anubhati. Yes, please.
I don't want to raise a discussion, but when you say self, when we said self-revealing, the word self that is used there, it's not, it's like you can say consciousness is self-revealing, so it's revealing itself. But it's not the self-revealing itself, because we don't use the word self, we said yesterday.
Oh yeah, see no,
The
I
discussion
mean to
about-
say, no, it's not like, please, whatever we say, take it properly, because I'm not saying that the use of the word self is prohibited in this class. What I'm saying is something very different, right? When you want to translate the word Atma, what is the most appropriate translation, right? That is what I meant, what we meant, right? What is the most appropriate translation of Atma, right? Atma, to keep it simple, it means I am. Because when you introduce yourself, you don't say, this self is 35 years old. What is the terminology that you use? I am 35 years old. So by Atma, what is meant is I am, right? It doesn't mean that never ever use the word self, right? Because this the self-evident is used, right? It is self-revealing. It doesn't need any other's help to reveal itself.
So
Yeah.
you can say Atma is self-revealing, you can say Brahman is self-revealing,
Excellent.
or you can say the self is self-revealing.
You can say, exactly,
Yeah.
you can say, right? You can say that. But the only thing that you can, see what Surya was explaining is, when you say self is self-revealing, it's fine. The only problem happens is, as Surya was pointing out, is, becomes a little, the self is, you never refer to yourself as self. You refer to self as what? I am. Right? Otherwise, what will happen is, then you will say this is a small self, then there is a big self. So the self itself will start getting a lot of different adjectives. And then Vedanta goes into a toss. Why it goes into a toss? Because the adjectives are used to distinguish one object from the other. And use of objective implies there are two. You see what I mean? So whichever word you use it very consciously. And because you think you are very smart, I mean, we think we are very smart, unfortunately, and we think that we are trying to make it easy, but actually what in return happens is, we end up changing the meanings without even knowing it.
That's why we ask questions.
That's why we ask questions, exactly. So then it becomes the global consciousness, local consciousness, all these things, you know. I mean, yeah, people have good intentions, they want to make it clear, but they don't understand the implication of that. It's like, I want to praise Vedas and I want to call it scientific, but the minute I do that, actually what I'm doing is I'm limiting Veda to something which is fraught with all these different problems, right? Science means it can be negated, it's partial, it is never complete. So you see what I mean? You want to praise it and you end up making it like one small little thing, like, you know, subject to your data collection. So that's why we want to do all good. That's why I don't want to criticize anybody, because I know every teacher is trying their best to convey what they understand, but the whole methodology of teaching requires extremely precise definitions. And the mind's tendency is to imagine anyway, so you have to reduce these imaginations and not further accelerate your imaginations. So this is why whichever word you use, whichever word you are comfortable with, understand what you mean by it and try to be as precise as possible. And if you yourself think you don't understand, ask what it means. Yeah, that is a nice way to learn. Yeah. So please don't take our messages as don't use the word. So somebody said, oh, in this class, this use of word is not allowed. I said, no, I never said that, right? So please, I don't make these kind of statements. What my commitment is to make this highly subtle, highly intricate teaching as clear and as precise as possible. That's all is my commitment. Who am I to tell you what to do and what not to do? I'm not a headmaster who is with stick and tell you, you should not do this and you should do this. This is just not my role. Okay? So please don't receive my messages in that manner. Yeah? So I'm just a free person and you're free to do what you want. The only thing is, if you're committed to learning for yourself, be as precise. That's all my messages are. Now my messages are not, please don't use this word, or in the sense that if you don't know the meaning and when you use these words, it becomes very confusing, right? So like see, the whole methodology, these words, they are what we call pramana words. Pramana words means they are employed very specifically to make you see your true nature. Now what happens is, so that means they all have a very specific place in the grand scheme of things, so that they do the job of leading and make you see the reality. Suppose you take this word and start using it in a common parlance. People will think you're cuckoo. What are you meaning when, because first of all, nobody knows what you mean. Secondly, it's totally used out of context. These words are used with a very specific context to make you see certain things that it wants to, and each one is defined in the grand scheme of things. You start extracting that word, thinking and wanting to show off what your Vedanta, that you are a Vedantin now, and you just start using it here and there. First of all, people don't know what you mean, so you become a spiritual snob. And secondly, you yourself don't do justice to those words, the specific position that they enjoy to do a specific job. You see what I mean? So that kind of a mind is a little bit, Vedanta requires that kind of a mind which is a discerning, discriminating mind, it's alert mind, not mix up. The whole problem is that of a mix up. The first problem is that of a mix up. So what happens, we go further in the name of Vedanta, we continue our mix up by all these terminologies and things like that, which gives us semblance of learning, but actually we further our confusions and we spread our confusion. So this is why Swamiji, in his normal language, he never used these words. He never really, when he talked to another person, he was just so normal. Right? You just use normal language because normal language is meant for normal interaction. These words are meant, they are pramana words. Pramana words means they are words which are meant to reveal something to you. They only mostly can be used in this context, because they are all defined and each one is built on the other to make you see something. You see what I mean? So that's all. If you still want to use it, I have no problem. Who am I to tell you anything? My job as a teacher is just to indicate what it is. After that, you are really, the world is free for all. You can do what you want, right? I'm not here to sit and control all of you. That's not my job.
So they're just tools, like you explained. The words are tools to bring you somewhere.
Yeah, they are used to, okay, let me explain slightly differently. See, when you use certain, let me explain slightly differently. Hopefully I'll make myself a little bit more clear of what I mean. Okay, now, right now, just before you come to Vedanta, where is your I? Tell me. Body, mind, and all the different conclusions that you have about I am, which part of the mind is a central processing unit which actually takes all these conclusions and makes the conclusions. Right? Ahankara is a place which gives you the whole self-image, right? It's not like each thought, it is just a passing thought. It is only staying for a fraction of a second. It's actually not capable of giving you any self-image. Please understand. A thought which lasts for fraction of a second is not capable of giving you this whole big picture of depression and all. It's not capable, right? So that means these passing thoughts which last for just a fraction of a second, why does it make such a big story for us, about the world, about everything else? How? Exactly. Here, everything gets connected and it gets repeated and it becomes bigger. So this function of the mind makes the story, right? And it takes everything which is actually changing, the body which is changing, the mind which is changing, and keeps attributing it to one thing which is I am, I am, I am. So while this changes, this seems continuous. Do you understand? Right? Now, so right now our main identity is not jiva. Why? Let me ask you this question. Why here right now it's not jiva? Why is it not jiva? It is the mind. Why? Question.
Because the jiva implies the lack of the knowledge we've been exposed to. In
Okay.
other words, still conditioning ourselves to the body and the mind.
Right? Exactly. Nobody, as Volcker very rightly says, nobody introduces oneself as I am. When you say I am jiva, I am the one who's ignorant of consciousness. Is that how you introduce yourself? Please don't introduce yourself like that. Right? So that these are technical words, right? It's used to make you see that jiva is, when you don't know the true nature of I, you take yourself to be something. You don't introduce yourself like that. Just say, stay as normal as possible. Right? So therefore, now, you are here, and because you have hundreds of notions about I, right, you are stuck, you are suffering. And you don't know how to get out of it, and now you want to know your true nature. And the teacher comes and says that, hey, anything that you do in this world will not help you to get rid of this self-image and suffering. So then you have to know your true self. Now, tell me, what will you use to know your true self? Why? Be clear, right? That you will use your existing mind to understand, to go from here to something else. Now, how will Vedanta show you that which is not available for objectification? Through what? Through words. Understand? Right? It will use words to make you see who you are. So Vedanta has to use words. There is no other way. Right? Now the mind has to create right meanings of those words. Now, at present, I liked Dara's question yesterday. So what he asked was that all these man, buddhi, chittam, manas, buddhi, chittam, ahankara, all of this is actually something that you are not. So can you just leave it alone and say, I'm consciousness, anyway I'm not this. You can't leave it alone. Why can't you leave it alone?
They are interconnected.
So that means now you need to use mind, which has all these functions, to understand the nature of Atma. Suppose your mind is fraught with all the burden of emotions, sadness, depression, whatever, right? Anger, resentment. Suppose your buddhi is all kind of unable to discriminate the simple ideas and just keep superimposing one thing after the other. Lack of logic. Your chittam, your memories, here conscious memory, by the time you hear the fifth verse, the third one is forgotten. So that means your conscious memory is quite poor, unless you've gone to enhance your memory function. And also you have all these unconscious sitting there, right? I'm not loved. And nobody likes me, I'm a victim. And also as a result of all these big mess, your self-image is poor or artificially self-inflated. Now this is the mind which has to use the words. Do you understand? So that means no matter what is said, it is seen through this. And what happens is, by the time the messages reach you, they get twisted. What is intended and what is received, there is such a huge gap. And therefore, in order for these words to be accurately received, the teacher says, Artha will not give you what? Moksha. Fact. By the time you receive it, oh, therefore Artha is really bad, it's material. That's your addition. Do you understand how the messages get all twisted?
That's why we need this definition for clearly.
Exactly. That's why you need definitions. Please don't deceive yourself by saying these definitions and all is just a detail. Hey, it's not a detail, it's a building block of a very big vision. And if you make mistake at one place, you are actually building something on a wrong building block. It will take you somewhere else. Even that people don't realize. They said, this person gave me vision and now this one is just giving me some details. Hey, don't twist messages. Right? So that means that you don't understand the enormity of the mistakes you make, and you see, and the need for precision and need for accuracy in this vision. The twisted mind twists everything and creates an illusion.
Yesterday you pointed out at that place that we need a healthy sense of
Self-image.
mind.
Absolutely.
And that is the basic to get the vision.
Exactly. And in order to enjoy the healthy sense of I, what will you actually also need to do, because this is related to these three. Do you understand that? Yes.
Said it's Ishvara Shruti, no?
Yeah, Ishvara Srushti, you can't bypass this. As Andre just said, you can't bypass this. You have to settle account with this before you get there. I liked your question, Dara. I thought about it because it was too late. So I answered it a little bit, but I didn't answer it enough. And but I just have to show you the importance of. So words are not tools. Please don't think that they are tools. What are they? They have the capacity to make you see what the truth is. The truth which is not available for objectification, but that which is self-revealing. These are pramana words. Pramana means they are means of knowledge. The accuracy is their means of knowledge. Pramana. Accurately defining, it means it is means of knowledge, through which you can know something. Because when you use the word tools for learning means what? Okay, I'm teaching you, and what he was talking about, rap, yesterday what he did, rap is a tool to learning, right? Is these were tool like rap to learn? No.
Revealing words.
Revealing words, excellent. The words which are capable of revealing what your true nature is. That's why they have to be used with responsibility and precision. Okay? Is it clear? So that means now, as Yuta is saying, the words are coming, but this kind of a mind cannot receive the right meanings. It will create its own, all complexities, right? Because here everything is so mixed up. So simple things are made very complex. And then you go and trying to see something, or you make everything oversimplified. Ultimately everything is mithya anyway, and these are ways of the mind to not prepare itself, but to give itself a semblance of knowing.
It's like if you would wear glasses which don't fit you and you see everything twisted because you have glasses and you see the reality through the glasses and you have to put off the glasses to see the reality.
Exactly.
But even if you do that, it's not going to work because your eyes have to relearn, have to adjust. So this is what you were talking about. Even if you take off the glasses, you still need to, to
Yeah,
work
I
on
mean,
your-
this is just an
It's
example
like
to
visual
show.
technique.
Yeah, but you're right, because the perception itself, even if it's a perfect perception, cannot give access to Atma. That's why you need Vedas. Otherwise, you yourself could be figuring out, or any ex-person could be figuring out. Okay?
So summarizing the discussion, it's a Matthias song. Don't build your house on a sandy spot, otherwise you have to do it twice.
Yeah, build on a solid rock. Then only the peace will come. Because the storms will still come and go. Really, it's a beautiful song. Remember this song. It's a beautiful song. This sandy land means it's all wobbly. It'll go one day on a solid rock. And does it then mean that the storms will not come and go? Storms will still come and go. The life will still continue and it will bring you many things, but the vision is not lost. And what the peace of God is what? The peace of God is yours. What?
You will know.
You will know.
You will know.
It's a nice, it's a very lovely, yeah, that's why I like it.
It makes also much more sense that these Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita are really like a different category than reading books for pleasure.
Yes. Absolutely. It's a very different category and you have to recognize it, and that's why you have to use those words in that way where they belong, right? Jiva is a place where I have taken you. You didn't even know the word Jiva before you came to Vedanta, right? It's a way to show that, hey, there is a continuity to this body and mind. There is a causal body, and all this continues till the nature of Atma is known. So this individuality which continues, it has a name called Jiva. You see what I mean? It's used in that way to make you see something, right? So it's a very special, so keep it here as much as possible, because each thing has a very specific place in this scheme of making you see what the reality is. Yeah, that's good. It's a different category. That's why we divided Aparavidya and Paravidya. And we showed the characteristics of the two. Yeah.
So could you say that it's about this self-growth topic, you cannot speak with everybody about it, but this para knowledge, it's very dangerous to talk with other people about it, because if they don't have it, you kind of confuse yourself.
Very good. As much as possible, right? I mean, this is so true, what Stefan is saying, that as much as possible, please, because the Paravidya is not a matter of cocktail conversation. Right? When you go to a cocktail party, enjoy it. Right? Like how yesterday you enjoyed the wedding of Julia and Clementina. Right? You didn't have to use all these words, I'm in Rajasic mode and all that. You don't need to do all of these funny things. Right? You just enjoy it. Did you label yourself or anybody else? You didn't. Right? Just be this normal person who's doing normal, just enjoy. Just use the word, I'm enjoying myself. That's much easier. Right? Because these words convey something very, very specific. Right? They are meant for something else. So therefore, as Stefan is saying, when you meet normal people, stick to which one? Aparavidya. Why? Because nobody has come to you to ask for knowledge of the self. Paravidya you only use when somebody comes to you and says, hey, please teach me the knowledge of I. This is when all these words come and all these methodologies come to make you see that. So when you meet somebody in a dinner party, nobody has come to know the truth of themselves, right? They've just come to meet socially. This is why people like me, because when they invite us, we don't behave like some Vedanta teachers and all that. We just talk. I want to know what they are doing. I'm curious, and I'm truly curious, really. Right? If there's somebody who's a scientist, I want to know what is the latest. Yeah, I love it. Somebody's an artist, we want to know what kind of instrument, what goes into it, who are the great people that they inspire. You have so much to learn. Leave Paravidya alone. Paravidya means, who comes to Paravidya? Tell me. The person who has discerned that Artha, Dharma and Kama, don't give me what I'm searching for, and then they are searching for solution. That person has to come to you and then say, what? Give me this knowledge, and then you begin to use these words and these methodologies to make them see what you have understood. So very good. So these Paravidya is only for moksha. I mean, all these words are part of pramana, and they are only meant for moksha. So in your zeal to show that you have understood things, please don't, just give them respect. Yeah, they have a very special place. They really do. And don't be averse to these words, these Sanskrit words. Please don't think that they are like, oh, I just want to know in English. Hey, these words are taken they have taken tremendous care to make you see from one thing to the other. You cannot have aversion towards these words. You may not understand them, then of course the translations are required, and the translations also can never be just one word translation, because they convey very subtle ideas. So you need a good teacher who makes you see the exact meaning, but that is very required, but you can't ignore these words, because in these words is the key to this final knowledge. So you have to have proper relationship with it. Okay.
Neema, I have one question to the copies we got, because I was a little bit confused yesterday that mantra 12 is under the line second Mundaka section 2, and that confused me because...
Yeah, so these are only selected verses, they are not all verses. So we are just indicating in the whole book what verse it is. So the Mundaka has how many?
I don't know, many more.
Third, yeah, there are many more, and second Mundaka, so there are different sections to Mundaka Upanishad.
Yes, but it starts with mantra 12, and so I thought maybe it's mantra 12 belongs to the first Mundaka.
No, see, the division is Mundaka means chapter, and within each chapter there are sections. And within each section there are different mantras, numbers from 1 to 1.
Oh yeah, this is first Mundaka.
Yes, but just to section 2 and then
Oh,
section 1.
Yes. Oh, so we have
So,
inverted maybe.
Yes, okay. Because if there's here, this is section
right.
1.
You're right.
Ah, yeah.
So it has to be first Mundaka section 2 and then...
Absolutely, you're right.
Yeah,
okay.
That's correct.
Thanks
So
for
it's the other
pointing
way
out.
around.
Thanks.
So
You're right.
mantra 12 is from section 1. Is it section 2 now? It's not second, but it's
I will double check. I will double check and let you know. But it seems correct. It flows.
we
thought yesterday we were discussing it's a deeper sense, and then we have like
Percent of the section below letter A. Just made a small typing mistake.
Daniel, can you open the door to the
No. Yeah, little pressure.
Okay, Neema, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
Without.
Okay, so we have seen.
Okay.
Okay, now we are at mantra 3, no? Yeah. Okay. Good. Further and further clarifications as a result of talking. Okay. The next. Etasmat jayate pranaha manaha sarvendriyani cha kham vayu jyotihi apaha prithvi vishwasya dharani. Now, this you can again one more. See, now what is done is further and further details are given. What we had done here, this is a good chart. Rudra told me yesterday that this chart helped him, right, Rudra? Where is this chart?
No, the next one.
Not this one. The previous one?
The big chart.
Yeah, the big chart, I know.
All the different
I know with everything, yeah, I know. Yeah, this one. This one? Yes? Okay. So now all the relationships are the whole universe is here, right? Really, in this chart, the whole universe is here, right? From consciousness to Maya to Ishvara to Jagat, time, space, objects, the whole thing, and then different lokas, then prana, manaha, actions, punya, papa, loka. The whole universe is here. Actually, he's so clever. He says, when you drew this chart, I knew exactly that, hey, you are actually giving me the whole thing of how, what is the relationship of what with what.
Just half an hour.
And it's true. It's really true. Okay? So now, what happens is, little more details are given. Right? So that we so what we did is, yesterday, bigger meaning of the mana was given by dividing it into what? 4 functions. Right? What? The emoting mind, the cognitive capacity, the memories, and the... Now, we are going to focus a little bit more on how did all of this, different things, where did they actually come from? How did they manifest? Is it clear, the question? Okay. So here it says, Etasmat jayate pranaha manaha sarvendriyani. So all these, the prana, mana, and all these senses that are coming of not only human beings, but of every other living being is from, here this verse says, from 5 elements. Which are the 5 elements? Kham, it's written kham. Kham, what is that? Space. Then vayu, air, jyoti, fire, then apaha, and then prithvi. So objects that you see, all these bodies and all, they just popped up like that? Or how did they, what is a little bit of a detail of the mechanism through which all these different bodies, all these different senses, all these different minds, how did they come, right? So that means we saw in this universe there are what? Two things, Sthula Sharira and Sukshma. So there is a physical world and then there is a subtle world. And both of them came from what? Different permutation and combination of these five elements. They were put together by all knowledge and all power. By what? Different permutations and combinations created these what? Physical and subtle universe, right? And what was taken into account, right? You can ask why Tobias got his body and Clementina got her body, because these five elements were organized not just randomly, but based on the causal, the karma, which accounted for that specific body and specific subtle mind. And what was used to create this? The five elements. So that means five elements have to be common in all, but how they manifest has to be different. And what accounts for that difference is what?
Karma.
Exactly, the causal. Perfect. Right? So what accounts for the difference is causal, because the causes for this body are different from causes from this body. Is it clear? And the material which is used to make the physical and subtle body is what? These five elements. Okay? So now, so in this physical body, first let's see, right? Where is the space? Is there a space here?
Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Yes, the space is everywhere in which the body is standing, right? So the body exists in space, but even within a body there is space. Where is the space? In the joints, in the belly, which sometimes gets problems, right? And so I went to this Ayurveda doctor, and what he told me is, see, the Ayurveda eating principle. The Ayurveda eating principle is, you have this belly, right? So fill half of the belly with solid foods, and fill 1/4, the remaining half, about 1/4, you fill it with liquids, and the last quarter you leave it empty for adjustment, digestion. For Shivananda. So therefore, what happens is, even as Yuta is explaining, that each part of your body is separated, each organ of your body is separated from the other organ in space. So that means the liver has to exist at this place, and kidney has to be where? If it is superimposed on liver, what will happen? Ooh. Problem, right? So it has to be separated in space. So that means not only the body exists in space, even internally, what each organ, each muscle. So there is something which people very commonly have, and that is what sciatica. What is sciatica, One nerve, which is just very close to the other, goes on top of the other. So that means just millimeters, the nerve shifts its position by millimeter and gets superimposed on the other. And what is the result? Grueling pain. Right? So that means each nerve, each muscle, it enjoys its own specific position in the space. Millimeters of difference and it's a mess, right? So this is what we call space. Yeah. Now, where is the in the physical body? Where is Vayu? What is going on?
The word for this illness, what you described, I asked for, and then the word for this.
The sciatica.
Yeah, what is this?
Sciatica is.
Yeah, you explained, but in German, does somebody know in German?
No.
Not important. Not important to understand Vedanta, yeah.
So find out. Look at the dictionary. Yeah. Okay. What? Somebody was asking something?
You asked a
Vayu.
question.
Yeah, exactly. Where is Vayu in the body?
Everywhere.
In the lungs.
Circulating.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Right?
And
So that
muscles.
means the external air, right, gets inhaled, and then what begins to happen is what it actually distributes everywhere in the body, right? Makes it alive. So Vayu is everywhere in the body. Fire. Where is fire? Digestive fire. This is why before lunch, did you think about why you are chanting Brahma, Panam, Brahma, Havi? You are all chanting, no? So what are you chanting? You know what you are chanting? No. Okay. Okay. So that means that you are, look at the beautiful, what you are chanting is something which is beautiful. You are saying that now I am offering this food to my what? Digestive fire. You are representing a Vedic yajna. What are you doing in Vedic yajna? You create a fire and you offer something to that fire to get the blessings of Ishvara. So while eating, it's not just a mechanical activity. You acknowledge the fact that there is a digestive fire here, and through food you are what? Nourishing that fire. And when you are keeping that fire alive and keeping it healthy, what is the outcome of that? You have a good health and you have a good what?
Energy. Energy level?
Energy levels, right? So you can live what? Meaningfully. You can use this body and mind to do all the wonderful things that it is meant to do.
It's like the muscle power, is it also fire? Like
yeah, and ultimately what you're also reminding yourself is that the body is manifestation of Brahman. Brahma, Padam, Brahma Havihi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, Brahmaiva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhinam. So what? You're reminding yourself that this body is not something which is, oh, I'm fat and I'm this and I'm that. Hey, it's manifestation of Brahman. Then what? The digestive fire is also manifestation of Brahman. The external food that you offer to this digestive fire is also Brahman. And if you begin to see everything as Brahman, then what? The understanding of Brahman never lose sight. Beautiful. In your head. So that means it's not like eating is material activity or rajasic activity and sitting and listening is sattvic and it's only good, it's a spiritual activity. Convert your whole life into what? It's a vision of oneness. How are you going to make divisions? Right? So that means begin to see everything, nothing is outside Vedanta in some ways, right? Because Vedanta converts this meaningless world into Ishvara. And wherever there is Ishvara, there is truth of Ishvara, which is consciousness. And that's why you inhere consciousness in you, because it is the truth of Ishvara. Right? It's the truth of gold. That's why ornament has it. Right? So therefore, you have digestive fire, water. Where is water in your body?
Sweat, mucus.
sweat, mucus, and in fact, by the way, one good news of anybody who has, who feels one is fat is what? It's only just water. So that means it's cool. Okay. So therefore, it's just water. There's a lot of your weight, body weight is dependent upon water. That's why you can go to sauna and shed a couple of kilos. So, and then Prithvi, earth. So what is Prithvi?
Bones, muscles.
Bones, muscles, right? Skin, all of this. So now, this is the 5 materials with which my body is made, Uta's body is made, Gabby's body is made, Amba's body is made, Yuta's body is made, everybody's body is made up of these. But they are still very different, right? Yuta has this, what she told me is Vayu, which in Ayurveda, Vata,
Space and air.
space and air, Vata and Pitta. Okay, so that means, whereas mine I don't know, maybe it's Kapha, I have no idea. But what I'm saying is, so what it means is that, you know, these 5 elements are also combined slightly differently with different attributes, which makes my body different from Yuta's body, right? So this is why, and that is all dependent upon the causal. So what the causal, now see how it is connected. What is the unseen result of the actions which have not yet fructified? They have to start giving you result. What is the mechanism through which you will experience a result? Without physical body and mind, can you experience pain? Exactly. So that means the physical body and subtle body is a mechanism through which you can go through different experiences of pain and pleasure. You understand? It is required. Without which no experience can float in the air. Experience means it requires a medium through which you experience your pain and pleasure. So that means your specific body is given to you to experience what? Your unseen result, right? Which are going to now be manifested. Is it clear? This is a connection. Why do you need subtle and physical body? To go through the experiences that you have not yet experienced. Is it clear? Okay. So now, this is how everybody gets different bodies, and as who had said, according to karma, Gabi had said that day, right? You can also have what? Body of an animal, you can have body of a devata. They all require what? Different permutation and combination of these 5 elements, right? The bodies can be different. What is common is that the 5 elements are required. What accounts for the difference is different permutations and combinations, okay? Now, you can understand that the whole physical world is made up of 5 elements. How do you know that the subtle world is also made up of 5 elements? See, body is very clear, right? That is made up of 5 elements. How will you relate the subtle functions also to 5 elements? Anybody has studied Tattva Bodha? It explains it. Right? So we don't want to go too much into detail, but there is a book which explains it very much in detail. How these, Swamiji has written a book, and it explains how these 5 elements are also connected to your senses and mind. Okay? Just briefly. How they are connected is, now each of these elements, it has its own given attribute. There is only one thing in this world which is free from attributes, and that is what? Consciousness. Everything else has some attributes, right? So that means space is actually very subtle. It doesn't have any major attributes, but one thing is for sure, that what? The,
Sound?
No, go ahead. Sound. Why? Very good. Why?
Because the sound can be transported in the air. So.
Excellent. Right? You
In
need
space.
space. Yes, exactly. You need space for the travel to, for the sound to travel. Right? So that means, so now, so there is, sound is related to space, air. Huh? Okay, no, 1 second. Which is, now let me come back. In your subtle body, there are what we call sense organs. Which sense organ is able to pick up the sound? The ears. Superb. Ears. Now, air.
Skin.
Excellent. So the one thing is the air. Something is something that you can touch, right? So therefore, this it's connected to your sense of touch. The sense organ touch.
Touch or skin?
Skin means suppose you remove the skin and you touch. Suppose somebody removes the skin, right?
No, what she says, sense organ is the...
Sense organ is skin, but there is a sense of touch. Yeah, skin through which normally the sense of touch can happen. So here is the skin. Yes, sense of touch.
Because of the organ.
Yeah, it's organ. So skin. Okay. Fire.
Speech.
That is organ of action.
Eyes.
Eyes. No, wait, here, fire has what?
Sound and touch.
Form. This is the first element which has a form, right? Space, can you see? No. Air, can you see? No. Fire is the first element which has a form, and in order to see the form, which sense organ you need? Eyes. Okay. Water. Yeah. It's the first one which, can you taste space and fire? No. No. The water is the first element which is what? Which has a taste. And by the way, the water has which taste?
Tasteless.
It is a neutral taste. Every other taste is defined through what? The neutral taste. So this is why sometimes they give you what? Tongue, what? You know, you've eaten something very spicy and now you want to eat something which is sweet. What will you do? Warm water. Just bring some water and wash away that other taste. So the next taste is able to be what exactly. So therefore, it's a neutral taste and every other taste is kind of tasted through this neutral taste. So this is with what do you taste?
Tongue.
Tongue. Okay. Earth. Smell. And what is the sense organ? Nose. Right. So that means all these different the senses that you have, they have connection to what?
The elements.
All the elements. This is why even the subtle body is something which is what? Made up of these five. There is a correspondence. Okay? Now, the other thing that you need to also know is, now the subtle body also includes, let's not go into everything, but it also includes mind, and according to Tattva Bodha, mind is made up of what? Each of the senses is corresponding to what? Each of the elements. Mind is result of what? All the five elements put together will make it mind. Why? What is the logic?
In order to experience these, we need the sense organs.
Excellent. Wonderful. So that means, suppose your ear has heard something, you need mind to process the data. Right? Mind is that through which all of these get processed, right? So therefore, suppose you touch something, your centers in the brain receive these signals, and then what? And if you see something,
They give a command.
they give a command, exactly. And the command can be of any of the 4 types, right? The emotion, cognitive, memory, and eye sense, right?
And how is this linked to prana? Prana idea? I mean, when you, for example, when you smell.
Let's first finish this.
Okay.
Yeah. So now your mind requires what? All these 5 elements in order to receive sensations from what? Each of these 5 sense organs. Okay? Is it clear? So this is why you begin to see that everything, the Vedic model has a certain reasoning behind it, which is that, there is a correlation, right? Now, what was your question, Kavya?
Like the prana idea, and how is it linked to the concept? So, for example, when you breathe in and you smell a certain incense with your nose, how is it transferred to the mind? Is prana involved in that?
Yeah, see, prana makes the body alive. So therefore, when we saw the 5 functions of prana, prana works through which one? Vayu. Once it enters, what does it do? It makes your sense organs alive. Without which, if there is no prana, when your body is declared dead, it cannot work. Right? So that means prana will actually make these sense organs what we call alive. Its function is to, and also prana will make what? While it is there, it will also make your mind alive.
And prana sources are food, sun, air, like clean air, like to.
So how is exactly? So this vayu is one of the elements. The vayu exists in space, right? So and also so that means vayu is one of the elements which enters. Let's look at this way, right? Now, after having entered in your own body, it makes your sense organs alive. It makes your mind alive, right? It makes your physical body and organs of action alive, right? Then it also requires this prana. In order for it to be alive, it also requires what? Food. So that means, so there was a very huge, Kal and Anna were there for Chandogya Upanishad. What was given the experiment to Shvetaketu?
You should not eat.
Yes, exactly. Right? Exactly. So, Anna, can you explain?
So, father of, what was his name?
Yes.
Shvetaketu? He said to his son to show him that the body is food, Annamaya Kosha. He asked him not to eat for 3 days and still learn and concentrate, because he came a little arrogant to his father and said, so I know everything, so what else to know? And then for 3 days he was not eating and couldn't concentrate, and all knowledge was gone in his mind.
Right? So that means even for this prana to function and the senses to function and the mind to function well, in addition to air, it also requires what? Food and water.
But what did you say then about people who eat really less food, who don't really need food?
Yeah, so that means that they have trained their body, right? So this is what, there was a very nice, one thing is, we think it's some great achievement to keep the body alive. Actually, the body is kept alive for, functioning well. It's not just kept alive for the sake of keeping alive. So I'll just give you one example, which is a very telling example, right? No, it's a nice example. Really, I was touched. I was deeply touched by this example. That Swamiji, once he had been in Bangkok, and Swamiji had come to Bangkok for a conference. And what happened during that conference, he got a heart attack. And he was taken by us immediately to the hospital and what is it called? Bypass. No, not bypass. Angioplasty. Yeah. Angioplasty was done, and these blocks that he had in the heart, they were all and then he was in the hospital and he was lying down. So everybody, then others came also. We were alone, so others came because the doctor told Swamiji not to go out. I think that's when you were there, I think, yeah? So asked him not to leave and fly for the next 3 weeks. So in these 3 weeks, Swamiji wanted to start teaching, right? Because he cannot travel back to India. So he wanted to, he says, get people and we'll teach, right? And people used to say, Swamiji, you're meant to what? Just rest. You just, right now is not a time for you to teach. What he said is that, yes, I love this body, and it's not that I want to disown or abuse his body, but this body is given to me to use it for a specific purpose. As long as I can use it for teaching, I'm very happy to have this body. The minute this body is not useful for me to teach, I'm not interested in just prolonging this body for the sake of prolonging it. So that means you take very little food, maybe you can increase, you talk about some yogis who increase their lifetime from 80 to maybe 120 years. But what are they doing? Just sitting. So therefore, the body is meant for, according to the Vedic vision. See, the yoga philosophy is a slightly different philosophy. But in Vedanta, this body and mind is a great opportunity that is given for you to know this and to understand. And in order for the mind to be engaged, it requires food. And this is the example that Anna was trying to give in this Chandogya Upanishad. Shvetaketu, who was so proud of all his accomplishments and everything, the father wanted to show, hey, this mind, which is actually nothing but what, given a permutation and combination of these 5 elements. So he said, Shvetaketu, you don't eat for some 15 days, not 2 or 3 days, right? Then after 15 days, he asked Shvetaketu, everything that you have learned, everything which is like, repeat it. Shvetaketu is struggling, right? And then he says, the father says, what? Start eating again. So after 15 days, what happens is what? Right? So that means all these subtle functions are very much connected to these 5 elements, whether we recognize or not. Yeah? Okay. Anya, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering why it's sense organs rather than senses, if it's subtle.
Senses. Yeah, you can say senses. You can say senses also.
Like
sense organs, can I say
I was
that?
thinking the ears and the eyes, are they not also in the physical body?
Yeah, see, one thing you need to, as I explained yesterday, there is a physicality about the eyes and then there is subtlety about the eyes. There is a physical eye, which is a physical eye, but there is what? Sight. So the eye is part of the physical body, the sight is part of the subtle body. Yeah.
It's where you cannot know what I see and I cannot know.
I can see your physical eye, but I don't know what I see. Yeah. Okay. Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. So now, the whole world is very intricately connected through these 5 elements. Now, what is the purpose of this verse to show what? Just to explain the model? Yes, give little bit more details, but what is the conceptual understanding?
That all is coming from one.
No.
It's like the fire.
The entire verse, exactly. The entire world, which is so many different names and forms, is first reduced to what? 5 elements. And these 5 elements themselves, they come from where?
Brahmans.
Right? Knowledge. So, and that is what? Ishvara. And what is the truth of Ishvara? Consciousness. Do you understand? So that means no matter how much more in detail you go, you see further and further connections, but the ultimate thing which remains is this relationship. Okay?
And it is going deeper in detail, you know?
It's going deeper in detail.
What's it called? That's why each element is dividing in.
Yeah, it is going to, so the physical body is again the Panchikaranam. So I will come on to the Panchikaranam.
And in Chandogya Upanishad, there were used only three elements. So it's not about 5 or 3 elements, it's just about to show us.
Excellent. Very good. Wow, they all remember. See, they come to my classes and they all remember Chandogya Upanishad, Mandukya Upanishad. Wonderful.
They did well.
They did well. You guys are doing extremely well also. No, really, I'm very happy how you are asking questions and how you are engaging. Very, very happy. Okay. So this is how the whole universe is made up, and each one is given, please understand, different physical body, different capacity of the senses, different mind, different functions of prana, depending upon their own karma. It's not just randomly distributed. Okay? So, this is what he says now. Purusha, next mantra. Sorry? Oh, time. Okay. Next mantra anyway is important mantra. What we will do is after the break. No, 11:30. Sorry. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.